Hey friends, with Thanksgiving coming up, I wanted to show you how I make my own pumpkin puree and how I freeze it to keep it good for a long time. So just start by simply cutting your pumpkin or pumpkins directly in half. After they're cut in half, as you can see, there's lots of what we call is pumpkin guts in the middle of the pumpkin. This is the fleshy, stringy part, most fleshy part of the pumpkin, along with all the seeds. Just grab a bowl if you would like to save your seeds. You can save them and roast them and eat them, or you can just toss them or compost them, maybe put them in your garden. Then what you're going to do is finish slicing your pumpkin. So the smaller the slices or the thinner the slices, the faster they will cook. I only had one pumpkin to do and plenty of time, so I just did bigger slices. Once you're done cutting all of your slices, just throw them on any baking sheet. You do not need to grease them. I've never needed to grease them. They are very high in their water content, and so it's very unlikely that anything will burn or stick to the bottom of your pan. Next, just preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and while it's preheating, you can oil the rind or skin of your pumpkin. This will help it cook better, and it will help the skin separate from the flesh once it's fully cooked, and it'll be a lot easier once it's done to be able to pull that flesh apart from the skin. Next, just throw your pumpkin in the oven and set your timer for at least 35 minutes. At the end of the 35 minutes, I opened up my oven and checked my pumpkin. It was not quite done yet, probably because I didn't slice it as thin as what you probably typically should. So I just added an extra 15 minutes on top of it. So here you can see, as I kind of poke around at my pumpkin here, that it is very, very soft. The rind or skin of the pumpkin is slightly burnt, but that's okay. Here I am just digging all of the really soft fleshy part of the pumpkin out. This was soft enough to where I didn't even have to try to peel the skin off of it. I just opened it up and started grabbing the flesh out of it, and it came right up. As you can see, the water content is so high in pumpkins. I think I read somewhere that it was about 90%. Of course, varieties of pumpkins vary a little bit, but there's water in the bottom of my pan. There is water dripping out of the flesh as I pick it up. here I had so much water in my bowl that I just decided to drain all of the excess instead of blending it in to the puree. So to make your puree, all I do is put everything into a bowl, and I personally prefer to use an immersion blender. As you can see, I just have so much more control over how things are blended. You can certainly use a food processor or another blender that you have. It will probably work just fine. This is just my preference. Here, all I did was take a plate and put my cheesecloth over top of it, and then took my puree and poured it onto the plate. Then I just gather all of the edges and sides of the cheesecloth, and then I tie it up with whatever I have, which was knitting string at the time, but most of the time I use twine. Next, I just twist it to try to make it tight, to try to push that water and that moisture out of the pumpkin puree. Here I am just stringing the pumpkin puree up with whatever I had at the time, which this time it was the hooks for my coffee mugs, but hey, whatever works. So it needs to be strung up so that the moisture can drain fully without being in a puddle. My recommendation is to put a bowl underneath so that it will catch all the moisture, and as you can see, there will be a lot of moisture. I would let your pumpkin puree drain like that for at least 24 hours. Now you have, as you can see, yummy pumpkin puree. So next we need to talk about how to preserve it. So what I do to preserve it is freeze it. All you need is a freezer bag and a Sharpie. Just label it for what it is, put a date on it, and then put how many cups you have in there. So here I'm just measuring out what I typically put in there, which is 2 cups. Once you have everything measured out, just unroll your bag, get all of the air out of your bag as much as you possibly can, and then I always try to flatten my bag of puree. It freezes more evenly like this, it will thaw faster. Thanks for watching my video. I appreciate it so much. If you want, go ahead and like it, subscribe for more tutorials and updates on our life and what we do here on our homestead. Have a really, really blessed day. Thank you.